Hey everybody, Dave Vandewally here. Welcome to the Metafinance show. And today we're talking about travel and specifically budget travel, and we're doing it with an expert, someone who knows their stuff. Let's say a genius on the subject. Cynthia Drake joins us on the show today. She is the author of a book published in February of 2015 called Budget Travel for the Genius. And Cynthia joins us. You're in suburban Austin or in the city of Austin, Texas,
I
correct?
am located just a little bit northeast of Austin in a city called Pflugerville, which has
Awesome.
a silent P at the beginning.
Okay, you learn something new every day, I guess. The P in Pflugerville is silent. And Cynthia, if you could, especially this, I find this interesting as I was preparing for this show. I just find the fact interesting that you're writing this book, and you actually wrote this book right around or right before or right after you brought home kid number two. So probably I'm imagining the finances do one of these sorts of things right around when you bring the kid home, and all of a sudden traveling on a budget is even more important to you. So without putting words in your mouth, what is it that inspired you to write this particular book?
Okay, well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about something that I'm so passionate about, budget traveling. The book came out, I birthed the book and my second son roughly at about the same time. Both had like different kinds of labor pains involved, I guess you could say. But I have an older son who's almost 5, and we have been traveling with him since he was an infant. So traveling with that's always been important to me. It's been something that my family always did with me when I was growing up. And I spend kind of a large part of the book talking about why I think traveling is so important regardless of your financial means, just in the, in someone's life, like how much it can enrich you. So that is kind of, I guess, my thesis, if you will, that I really think that traveling is important. And, there are all kinds of ways to do it. You don't have to be like rich to do it.
Okay, so for those of us who are visiting the site, or people like me who are not rich and looking to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to traveling, give me maybe your top 1 or 2 tips that people who are budget conscious should be looking out for when they're planning their next getaway.
Okay, my book is huge. It's like 300 pages, so it is kind of hard to consolidate it to just 2 tips. But I guess if I had to kind of give you an overall strategy, I would say throw away your ideas of the vacation that everyone takes. Like, throw away your concept of, I have to take the kids to Disney World, I have to stay in, a 4-star chain hotel, I have to buy every meal out. Like, kind of my whole strategy with the book is you can travel very cheaply if you're to think outside the box of one the vacation to be. Well, instead of driving or taking an airplane, think about looking into some of the train options, or there's even some really cool bus services like Megabus these days. I'm sorry for the...
That's okay. I understand that. Yeah, don't worry about it.
That's okay. And in addition to that, just think about other things than staying in a hotel. Camping has perennially been like a very cheap way to travel. And with kids, it's such a great option. You can do so many things that will give your kids that wow and those great memories to look back on that don't cost a lot.
Okay, it all sounds like great advice, but how do you, from a mindset standpoint, get the kids away from thinking about Disney, thinking about the beach vacation that everybody seems to do? What do you do to philosophically get beyond that mom, dad, we got to go to Disney World sort of thing that every kid goes through.
Sure. And I also want to say I do cover Disney in my book. I do cover the beach vacations. It's actually like kind of like a budget approach to doing any kind of vacation. So it's not to say that you have to throw those ideas out the window. But the cost of things. If Disney is something that's a priority for you and your children, maybe that's something you work to saving up for over a longer period of time. Maybe talk to them about the value of an experience like that, and maybe they would be willing to forego some of their Christmas gifts or their birthday gifts in lieu of having that experience. And then also just to always be traveling with your kids from a young age, doing things like camping and so forth, so that they're sort of acclimated to those experiences as definitely worthwhile and something to look forward to.
What about shopping for hotels? And if let's say you're not a camper, I'm not a camper, but I'm looking for a trip with the family, and I know we're gonna have to stay in a hotel. What would you advise us? In addition, I guess, to online booking sites and those sorts of things. What are some of the tricks that you would suggest when it comes to shopping for a hotel?
So my favorite tip that I use all the time when booking a hotel is using one of the blind booking sites, such as Priceline or Hotwire. I have for years and years had great success with those sites, bidding, for half or the cost, or I'm sorry, less than half of the cost. And you get to specify your star level kind of zone, where you'd like to stay. And if brand loyalty isn't that important to you, it is a really good way to save money.
And we were having a couple of audio blips while you were saying that. If I heard you correctly, you said that a good strategy for the blind booking sites such as Hotwire and Priceline is to bid less than half of the value of the room. Did I hear you correctly?
Well, actually, it gets a little complex. It's kind of hard to explain in words my strategy, but what I will say is there are websites out there that you can go to, such as biddingtraveler.com, or I think there's one, Bidding for Travel, and you can see some of the successful bids that have been accepted for the area that you're looking at.
Okay, so the idea there is to use the data that's already available, and to understand, okay, if somebody got this $300 room for $89, maybe I've got a shot. Or if somebody got this $300 room and it's $225, that's probably one I'm going to want to stay away from, or that's a strategy I may not be able to afford. Airfare. Do you use the same sort of tricks when looking for airfare for a family? Because obviously not everywhere that you want to go visit with the family or on a budget, if you're a single person or whatever, is going to be within driving distance. So if you have to fly, what's your advice for the flying public?
Okay. Airfare is just not as much wiggle room on your airfare as there is with your hotel. So I'll just put that out there. I do not actually advise going through Priceline because you give up a lot of your freedom in terms of flight times and things. And if you're traveling with a family, that can be something that you really value, is getting nonstop flights and so forth. So for airfare, I recommend doing, I really like Google Flights lately. That has a really slick matrix that tells you, if it looks out over the next few months at the destination that you're visiting, and tells you when those ideal tickets would be purchased. So if you're flexible in terms of your dates, that's a great way to do it. And then another thing that I really advise is, if you can be flexible in terms of your departure city and your arrival city, play around with those a little bit, you usually can net a pretty good savings that way.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm right outside Chicago, but we're also, I think it's about 45 minutes from the Milwaukee airport. So we can use that. We can use the two airports in Chicago to our advantage. If I've actually seen flights posted from the Gary, Indiana airport, which sometimes when I drive by it, I'll see a Pan Am jet on the runway and kind of wonder what century am I in? But speaking of internet sites and some of the clever internet things that people do, Airbnb and this whole concept of the sharing economy seems to be pretty interesting. I'm imagining that's something that you've got some expertise in. What's your advice when looking to stay in some foreign person stranger's home through one of these sites? What's your advice for that?
I have had really good arrangements. I've stayed at Airbnb, even through Craigslist, if you can believe it, which people are kind of leery about that kind of thing. I do give suggestions in my book for, being safe and making sure that, you're not alone if possible when you're one for the first time that you've made arrangements online, and also to attempt to get a sense from them either by phone, they can, to ensure that this is a legitimate deal, because there are scams out there. But again, I have had great success. Thousands of people are doing this these days. You use this deal, and the value of staying in a place like that is not only that it's usually cheaper than a hotel, but also that you have access to things like laundry facilities, kitchen facilities, and kind of like the local knowledge that comes in someone's house, or just you're not pushed off into an area like a touristy area. You can actually live, in the place that you're staying.
Final thoughts then, because I know that this is obviously said it's a big book. We'll have the link on the site for people to check it out. Hopefully, pick it up on Amazon. Final thoughts that you would have if you're sharing travel tips, budget travel for the genius author Cynthia Drake. What would you suggest that the public needs to know about?
Well, I want to say that we talked a lot about family travel, but also in my book, I cover travel for senior citizens and single travelers. Sometimes single people get the short end of the stick because they don't benefit from some of the double occupancy rate. So there are ways that you can save as a single as well. College students, there are tons of discounts out there available for them. So I actually devote a chapter to each of those audiences and kind of go through the nitty-gritty of like what kinds of discounts are available to you. But I would just say overall, try to plan as well as you can before you leave. Get in the mindset that you will be looking to save money. So look for those, happy hour specials, those free days at museums, those free breakfasts that you get at your hotel. All of those things can come together to give you a really special vacation while saving you a lot of money.
Wonderful advice. Cynthia Drake is the author of Budget Travel for the Genius, and she's been our guest today on the Metafinance Show. Cynthia, thanks so much, and good luck with continued success selling the book.
Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate it.
Okay, and we'll see everybody next time on another edition of the Metafinance Show.